Hi, I'm Rashonda. I'm the creator of this YouTube channel as well as the artbyro.com website, which by the way has over 250 art and drawing tutorials that are perfect for the beginner artist. So if that sounds like you, be sure to check that out. But first, join me in today's tutorial that is how to draw a fancy fish. It's really easy, again, perfect for beginners. So I hope you'll stick around and follow me along and do some of your own artwork. So let's go ahead and go on over to the art studio and get started on that drawing. Today I'm going to show you how I draw this fancy fish. I call it a fancy fish. I'm not sure how fancy it is, but I like it. I think he's cute. The fins are fun. So let's go ahead and start out with some basic shapes. So we're going to start with an oval for the body. And then that's going to come into this big tail, which is going to be something like that. And we're using these just as our guides, so we can change them however we want. And then this bottom fin is going to come down like that. And then the top fin, something like that. So hopefully you can see that well enough on the camera. Hopefully it picks it up enough. But we're going to darken it up, and of course you always want to start drawing kind of light with your sketches. And we're just going to make the nose kind of pop out a little bit there. Maybe make the body come down a little bit more and then curve up. You can change this up however you want. My goal isn't necessarily for you to follow along and make the exact same drawing that I do, although you can. There's nothing wrong with that. As your skills develop and your confidence improves, then hopefully you start putting your own little twist on things and coming up with some of your own variations and ideas. So what we want to do is just make everything look a little bit more interesting. And it's these little tiny details that can really make a difference. So adding in these curves, we'll have that curve up like that. And this isn't anything that's necessarily found in nature. We're just having fun, doing some drawing, making some art. I'll curve that like that. And then for this one, so just look at the way the curves are and then think about how you can make it look a little more interesting. We don't want just one straight curve, or one, I guess straight curve's not a thing. We don't want one curve that just from start to finish. We want to think about curving it down, then back up again, and then maybe curving in again and back out. That gives us a very different look than if we just did one continuous curve. And then we'll put an eye right around in here somewhere. And then we can start adding in some little designs. So we could do some wavy lines and then maybe just put some dots. Like I said, this isn't anything that we're trying to illustrate something found in nature. It's just about having some fun and making some cute little artwork. And if you don't like it, erase it. Try again. So again, with this, if we have it wider at one end and then more narrow at the other end, then that can help things look a little bit more interesting. And of course, do whatever feels right for you. If you hate these little bands of stripes that I'm putting on here, then come up with a different way of adding decorations, or maybe you don't like the decorations at all, and that's okay. You could just make yours just solid colors and leave it at that. This is going to be a band here as well. And then just filling it in with a couple additional little patterns. Clean it up a little bit if you need to. And then we can add in some little backgrounds if we want some little underground grasses or whatever we might want to do there. But let's go ahead and do the next step, which is to add the outline. I am using these Edding outlining pens, which are real nice. It came in a pack of 4 for like $10 or $11, which I think is pretty reasonable. And they work well. I like that they have a pack of 4 with different sizes. So if you want to make thinner or thicker lines, there's 4 different nib sizes in there, which is nice. So I'm literally just going to outline everything. Just going over top of all of the pencil lines that I made, the ones that I want to keep. And you can think about how you do your lines, if you want them to be thicker or thinner, or maybe you want to do a combination of line weights. I typically like a little bit heavier of an outline. That's just my personal preference. We're just going to go over all of this, and then for these, what I'm going to do is fill in every other one, and then the ones in between are going to stay white. And you could make them a color too. They'd probably look pretty nice with a color, but I'm just going to make mine black and white. We're going to do the same thing on all of these. You could play around with different thicknesses for these stripes, putting them further apart or closer together. Maybe you could have a combination, make some thick, some thin, make some kind of like a double band where they're closer together. You can think about what different types of patterns you could put on here. I did not follow my lines. I am curving the opposite direction, which is fine. You do want to keep them consistent and either have these curves going up or down, or straight if you just want them to be straight. I think they look better curved, even though typically that would kind of illustrate the contour, which on the where it's positioned on the fin really wouldn't have much contour to it, but I like how they look curved better. And then just going over these. And you can thicken them up if you want. I think you should try both ways with your line weight, making some thicker, some thin, especially if you've never given that a whole lot of thought or you haven't experimented too much with it. Then for sure try both with some thicker lines and some thinner lines. And then what we're going to do when we're done is just take a big eraser and go over top of the whole drawing and clean this up a little bit. Get rid of all of those extra pencil lines. I'll fill this all in black, and then everything else is going to be different colors. So now if I wanted to make this outline on the outside edge thicker, I can just go back over top of it, right along the edge. Fill in. And of course you could do this in another color. It doesn't have to be black. I prefer a black outline. But to be honest, I've not done too many drawings with colored outlines. Or maybe a gray outline might look nice. I've not really tried playing around with the outline too much, which, you know, part of how your style develops, your artistic style for yourself, is you find things that you like and you get comfortable with, and then you typically will keep doing that with your drawings and not changing it up a whole lot. And eventually you probably would change some things, but that's part of what goes into determining your style. So we get comfortable with what we do and what we like. A lot of times we'll tend to use the same colors. I know I have my favorite markers that I like to use, which is what we're going to do today. And I should mention, this is an artist trading card, is what I'm doing this on. I cut them on a cardstock and then round off the edges. I can get 10 individual cards out of one piece of paper. And if you check out in the description box, I have an artist trading card guide that's a PDF freebie that you can download. The link's in the description box, and it will show you how to cut them so that you can get 10 individual cards. And then what I do is I round off the corners with this little corner punch that I got at a hobby store. So let's go ahead and continue on with this by adding in some color. So I picked out some colors. So I'm going to start by filling this in. A lot of my drawings that I do, I'll use a couple markers for each area. So for example, with these fins, like I'm using purple here, I would typically do a light and a dark and put down the light color and then go in and add some darker areas on there. But I'm not going to do that with this one. I'm just going to make the colors more flat. You could do it either way. I was talking a little bit ago about the artist trading cards, and that's one of the reasons I love, there's many reasons, but one big reason is that with the artist trading cards, they don't take as long to do your drawings because they're smaller, and it gives you a little bit more freedom to play around with some ideas and try new things, and you're not spending hours on a drawing. So if I was doing this on a larger scale and like in a sketchbook or on a full sheet of paper, whatever you might do your artwork in, if I was doing this on a larger scale, it would take me a lot longer. It would use up more art supplies, so I'm using markers. It's going to take a lot more time, but I'm also going to use up more resources doing it. I'm not going to be as likely to want to experiment and try different things. And also, the way I look at it is, if I was doing this on a larger scale, and just say it was going to take me an hour and a half to do it, by doing these on artist trading cards, I could do 3 or 4 in that amount of time and have 3 or 4 different completed drawings that I could try something different on each one, and I would discover some things, and not only that, but also come up with my own original ideas. So you can find a drawing, do it one time, and then think of how can I change it up. So if I did this fish and did the drawing this way, and then the next time, what if I changed up the shape of the fins? What if I changed the shape of the body? I could do different colors. I could do different patterns. I could do different backgrounds. And in the same amount of time that it would take to do a bigger drawing, I could have a few where I tried different things and experimented and had some fun, and who knows what you might come up with. So this fish actually is, I did a series I like to do, I call it the 7-day challenge, where I like to do a series of drawings, and I'll start out with one of whatever it is I'm drawing. So in this case it was fish. I did one, it was pretty boring, kind of basic, and then I did another one and I changed it, and another one and another one, and I did a series of 7, and each one was a little bit different. And when I was done, I had some pretty cool looking fish that I would never have come up with if I just did the one and then stopped. So that's where artist trading cards really come in handy, I think, is just the smaller scale and being able to do some different things. So for the background, I'm just gonna fill this background in with this light brown, this tan beige color, and I'm gonna add a couple little designs in here, and then I'll be back to talk about the finishing touches. the color is all done. And the final step is to add some white. And I use these jelly roll pens. So typically what I'll do is just look at where I can add a little bit of contrast with the white. So maybe we'll add some white dots in here. And then on the body I can add some little highlights. This is optional. I like these jelly roll pens. They work really well for going over top of markers. And some of the lighter colors like the blue, it's a little difficult to see. And then maybe add in some random circles. Be like little bubbles or not, they could just be circles. Just put in some designs. We got the pattern on the fish, so you could put patterns in the background as well. So that's pretty much it. I think we'll call this guy done. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I really hope you feel inspired to create some of your own little fun fancy fish. And I will see you next time. Happy creating! That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully you felt inspired to follow along or do some of your own artwork. As I mentioned in the video, in the description box, there's a link to that freebie on how to make your own artist trading cards. So go ahead and check that out. And also, if you did enjoy the video, please give it a like. That really helps us out. And you can subscribe if you want to get notified of future videos. And I will see you next time. Bye.